we're past past, and we've got quite a number of people online now. So anybody else who wants to join us now can just get up to speed. But thank you for joining us this evening. My name's Naomi Sweeney. I'm a portfolio manager with the transformation team at Scottish Borders Council. And welcome this evening. We're talking about data and the data that people are interested in around supporting communities to develop their plans, be that a local place plan, an investment plan, or other projects in the community-led planning and placemaking space. So we have a number of guest speakers this evening, and it's a fairly packed agenda with a number of different topics. So I'll just kind of flip onto the agenda, just have a quick run through what we're looking to talk to you about this evening. Sorry. Can everybody see the slides okay?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, as I say, we're going to just run through a variety of different guest speakers. First of all, we've got a presentation from South of Scotland Enterprise, excuse me, who are going to talk to us a little bit about the data that they can help support communities with. Then we're going to go to Erin Murray, who is one of our data specialists in Scottish Borders Council, who's going to talk to us about the things that we can help supply you with. And a little bit about the SBC's data strategy, where we've got Melanie Hermisty coming in on that one. And then Scotland's Down Partnership are joining us to talk about some of the things that they can help with. And then we're rounded off with a presentation from David Hope-Jones on the work that South of Scotland Destination Alliance are doing in relation to data to support tourism. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along. There's a Q&A function, or if you'd like to put things in the chat, but we will have some time at the end for questions as well. So without further ado, I will pass over to Jan Pringle to get us started.
Hello, good evening everybody, and thanks very much for your kind invitation, Naomi. I'll try and rattle through it and keep us on time. So I always wanted to say this. Next slide, please. What I'll be covering tonight is a brief overview of, next slide. Sorry. There we go. A brief overview of SOSI for those who are unfamiliar with us as an organisation, and the Enterprise and Communities team, some of the data sources we've access to, and really how we support from that plan to delivery stage. So quite a broad kind of area to cover. Next slide. So just a brief introduction. Who are we? How did we come to be here? So in 2017, there was a national Scottish level enterprise and skills review, which recognised the need to do things differently because of the unique circumstances of the south of Scotland. So that then brought forward a recommendation for a new enterprise company, and in 2019 the South of Scotland Enterprise Act was passed and we launched 2 years later in April 20. Our mandate is fairly broad: economic and social development, improving the amenity and environment south of Scotland. So in essence, we are here to support people, planet and prosperity, the 3 Ps, and that's really a key focus of the Act, and really embedded in a kind of strong place focus. That's all part of our DNA. So we have a significant rural geography across the south, covering both Dumfries and Galloway and the Scottish Borders. So in essence, our organisation size, a board of 12, staff have 140 across 4 directorates, the majority of whom are externally facing and work directly with communities, clients, businesses, stakeholders. Next, so overall, our vision is for the organisation, as part of our strategic plan, is to establish the South as a centre of opportunity, innovation and growth. So next slide. How we're structured, like I said, it's 4 directorates. Enterprise and Communities, where I'm sit, is within the Place and Enterprise, so that is the main kind of operational team in South of Scotland Enterprise. However, we do have a strategy team, and that is really where our data and research team sits. And as a team, I say it's a 2-person team, so it's a fairly small resource within the data and insights. And to be honest, we rely heavily on kind of externally produced data, and it's more about the interrogation of that at a kind of regional and South of Scotland level. Next slide. So within enterprise and communities, we support people and groups of people with a common interest. We individuals who want to drive social change and be that social entrepreneur. Establish community organisations who want to become more resilient through trading, and social enterprises who want to develop and grow. So a really broad kind of customer base, really. What they all have in essence in common is that they are all delivering upon a social purpose, responding to needs of place, looking at sustainability, and again focusing on social, environmental and economic impact, with some level of I suppose entrepreneurial ambition, which seeks to do more innovation or take them to different places. So that's a really high level who we are, where we come from. Next slide. So what information have we got available? One of the key surveys we conduct is the South of Scotland Business Panel. Now the Business Panel is also delivered in conjunction with Highlands and Islands Enterprise, so it's a partnership approach to the delivery. So it really it surveys a broad business base predominantly. It's conducted twice a year, 600 enterprises. It is externally commissioned to a research institute, so it's done from a professional base. It is longitudinal, so it measures change over time rather than that short, sharp kind of in the moment. It is entirely voluntary, and we do retain the members on the business panel. I think what's important is, what does this mean in practice? Well, we've got a small business economy, more businesses in the south per head of population compared to the rest of Scotland. About 98% of our businesses are small, medium enterprises, predominantly micro enterprises. So that means they have 0 to 9 employees, and that makes up 80% of our kind of business base. About 28% of our business base are in primary industries. So that makes up the majority of what is the survey base within the business survey. So it really reflective of kind of the businesses in the south. It also looks at a distribution across rurality classifications. So those that are in kind of really rural locations, those that are in semi-rural, and those that are more in urbanised. So there's a real spread across. So it reflects the widest possible distribution of our business base. It also looks at sectors which are important to the economy of the south, and it can look at and help to identify some of the operating conditions and the experiences of businesses in those particular regions. What it doesn't tell us is the survey looks at the south as a whole. So over half, apologies, a dog barking in the background. Sorry, it's slightly over half the businesses are obviously in Dumfries and Galway, as we cover the south. So the report can identify differences between the two regions, and however that doesn't really appear very often. What therefore, in terms of place planning, I suppose there's a caveat that it is a South of Scotland survey, and it really doesn't enable itself to be drilled down to specific towns because the sample size is really too small. However, it gives you a general context of what's happening, so which is fairly representative of the whole South of Scotland. So that's one of the primary ones. All the results of that and the infographics are available freely on SOSI's website. There's the link there. They are free to download and they will give you kind of the more detailed summarised version as well. So moving on, next slide. The other key information point for us is the social enterprise census. This is a national survey which is conducted by Social Value Lab on behalf of the Scottish Government. That has been going for a number of years now. I think we're in the 4th iteration of that survey. So again, it tracks change over a length of period of time. There is a 10-year commitment to conducting that survey, and it looks at both kind of it does a general sweep of the population of social enterprises and how those are made up, and it also looks at the financial health and the characteristics of that sector. Again, within this, we get an extract both from the Scottish Borders and from Dumfries and Galway, so that can be provided, the reports for that can be provided at a local authority level. Unfortunately, due to the sample size on that one, it can't be provided at any lower level because it just isn't representative. In terms of for those of you who are not familiar with the term social enterprises, basically that looks at any socially orientated organisation that trades, sells goods and services for a social or environmental benefit, that reinvests its profits, that means it's got an asset lock, so it basically means if they cannot sell the asset for private benefit, it needs to go back into a like-minded organisation wound up in the future, and also it's accountable to the local community. So that can be any type of community legal form. What I would say about the social enterprise census is that only the sample is drawn from those which are regulated organisations, so that they belong to some sort of regulator. So whether that's Oscar from a charity perspective, Companies House from companies, or like the Benefits Society or the KIC regulator. So it doesn't cover general community organisations where they don't submit annual accounts for vetting. So there is 2 levels of report available in the social enterprise census. Next slide. One of which is a summary that gives you your key facts for the sector. It allows you to, again, to see the key characteristics. It will show you trends over time in the full report as well. And again, there's a full narrative report available, and what we'll do is we'll get the full narrative report sent out to everybody as part of the session with the slides, so that you can have that in your inbox instead of trawling for that on the website. So those are the kind of 2 main surveys that are available. However, what we do as an organisation is commission certain pieces of work. These tend to be more qualitative in nature, so it investigates a particular theme or sector. So a key one has been additional support needs. So we worked with 2 additional support needs organisations to bring additional support needs network, which then investigated the experiences for those with additional support needs in employment and learning. So there was a series of investigations and reports and a final conference. Again, those are all hosted on then website. Those are on Inspiring Scotland's because they facilitated that. They're all there. The other key area to look for in terms of thematic documents is on SOSI's website on its General Resources tab. And what we've looked at today is more detailed investigation into woodland creation and the community benefits that come from that, and also the creative industries and the size and scale of that across the south of Scotland. Again, there is some regional data available on what that looks like, how it's made up the sector. So again, might be useful context for your place plans. And finally, more recently, has been the cycling strategy. I think where SOSI comes into its own thought is not so much on the data side, because we rely heavily on those kind of national statistics, which will be covered kind of later on, but actually is moving from place plan into your delivery phase. And what we have is a team of 8 specialists and 6 advisors who can work directly with communities and those who are looking to take forward particular enterprise developments and help them to provide advice and guidance to develop their ideas, develop their strategy and their business plan, and really put a really strong case for the project and the funding together. We do support funding investments as well into particular areas which support SOSI's people, planet, prosperity. So it looks at balancing its investment across those kind of 3 areas. So really, I think how going forward, once a place plan is there, what we do try to do is put people into the place plan development process so that as much as possible in our key towns have an expertise there that has built up a relationship with communities that can then support more their detailed planning for projects and delivery. So that's kind of a really, really quick whistle-stop tour around a couple of key data sources and where we can come in and support that placemaking activity. Happy to take any questions. Yeah. And I think I've done that in 10 minutes, I think.
I was going to say, I think that might be record time, Jan. Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Jan at the moment? I can't see anything in the Q&A at them as it is.
Am I getting off lightly? Oh, one hand up.
I do have one hand. It says meeting guest.
There's no name
Did
for
you
me.
have a question? Gordy.
I don't know why I'm meeting guest, but anyway, strange. Jan.
Hi.
Hi, Jan. How you doing? Just briefly around the SOSI, around the data layering as we do our place plans. You talked about the social enterprise, and that's good, but SOSI also has other kind of databases, or I know they're doing a carbon count, or effectively our carbon footprint in the south of Scotland, and decarbonization through the Zero team. And then there's a couple other gleaning things around the land use planning and the land use consultations that they did, and a number of others. So there are other kind of data sources too to support us through SOSI, isn't there?
Yeah, those. Oh, sorry, I'm getting feedback. Those would come on the website on the additional resources as and when they are published. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the net zero team are working on various different projects which will provide more detailed insight into that sector. But these are very much work in progress. So once they're available, that's where they go. I don't know if you're still on mute, Gordy, there.
Right, I'm back on mute. Yeah, I know some of the land use stuff is available on the Sochi site. So if anybody wants to glean that down, they could use that. That's it. Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any other questions there? Okay, well, without further ado, then we will move on to Melanie Hermiston, who's going to give us an update on the SBC data strategy. Melanie.
Thanks, Naomi. Hi, everybody. As Naomi mentioned, I'm Melanie. I'm one of the project managers in the transformation team, working alongside Naomi and Lynn. There must be something in the air, Jan, because my dog was going mental the same time your dog was barking. So who knows, something must be going on. But yeah, I'm just here to give you a quick update on what we're doing in terms of a data and information strategy. So since about July last year, we as an organisation have been doing a lot of work and learning a lot about our data maturity. So in terms of just learning about how we collect, process, analyse, manage, use and share our data, both internally and externally as well. So we've had a number of internal projects running which have made us have a look at this in a bit more detail. We've also undertaken a data maturity assessment in collaboration with the Scottish Government and a data consultancy service called Data Orchard. And just throughout all of that, having internal discussions and a lot of engagement with each of our different services brought us to the recommendation that it would be good for us as an organisation to create and implement a data and information strategy. We know from the work that's been done there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Sorry, Lynn, can we go? Thank you. Easy one, jigsaw pieces. Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we need to bring together in order to optimise our data outcomes. But ultimately, we want to be able to manage and use the data and information that we have available to us in a proactive way to support decision making and to improve services, as well as bringing a more consistent approach across the organisation. If we go to the next slide, we can see just some of the pieces of that puzzle that we're trying to get on top of and bring together to make a bit more sense. But through the course of the work we've done already and going forward, we're under no doubt that we're going to need to, that we will identify, far more pieces of this puzzle. So you can see some of the things there, the digital solutions that we use, business intelligence tools, the leadership in relation to data and the management of data, governance, the culture and the skills also in-house. Do we have the right skills that we need to do the things that we want to be doing? So where are we just now? At the moment, we're in the very early stages of this piece of work. And I know I said July last year, but that was the other projects that have started looking. So in terms of the actual development of the data and information strategy, we're in the early stages and we're just having a look at developing the vision at the moment. We've had, as I mentioned, a lot of engagement sessions with key stakeholders across the organisation, and we've been gathering some really critical insights into what the reality of the situation is for services and the challenges and barriers that they're faced with in terms of collecting and managing their data. It's also really helpful to come along to sessions like this to hear the discussions that are taking place and to get an awareness of what's happening across our partner organisations. Because if we're looking to share more or make more data available to the public, it's good to have an understanding of the types of things that you guys are looking for. Into the new year, we will crack on with developing the strategy itself and the associated frameworks. So part of the puzzle that we saw earlier talked about business intelligence. So as an organisation, we need to develop and implement a business intelligence framework so that we know exactly what it is, these tools and the information and how we should be using them. And then we'll develop the improvement plan. So what we identify as challenges and solutions to those challenges, we'll make recommendations for that work to be undertaken so that we can work towards moving forward in our data maturity journey. So as I said, it was a very quick update on the work we've been doing, but I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any at this stage. But yeah, I'm interested to hear the rest of the discussions.
Gordy, is that a
And I
legacy hand?
definitely beat Jan's time.
Gordy, is that a legacy hand?
Yes, it is. I'm trying to take it down. It says raise your hand on mine. So let's try this down. No questions.
Okay, thank you. I guess just adding into Melanie's presentation, that a large part of what's been done around data is looking at ways to make data more transparent to our communities and to our customers, so that there is more information available online, with a view to reducing the requirement for freedom of information requests, but also to make it easier for communities to be connected with information that's helpful and relevant to them. So there's all sorts of conversations going on internally about the things that people are asking for through this placemaking, community-led planning process, but kind of in the wider community as well, and the things that would actually be useful and helpful. So a large part of that thinking is around what information do we actually hold as an organisation, but also what information would be helpful? What else could we be doing to improve the information that we do have? What sort of technology can we be implementing in the communities to help us to gather more intelligence that would be helpful in turn to our service delivery, but also to wider community aspirations around destination management and the kind of widest possible sense. So things like Internet of Things and sensor technology to help us to understand information better. So that's all kind of things that we're thinking about at the moment. So if anybody has any questions on that, please feel free to bring them up later or ask them now, or equally after the presentation we will share the slides with you, and we'd welcome any feedback or any thoughts from attendees as well. Okay, no questions at the moment though. Okay, well, in the vein of helping connect everybody with information, if I can bring in Erin Murray now, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the information that SBC has, the information it uses, and what we're hoping to do in terms of connecting you with that information going forward. Erin.
Am I there? Am I live? Lynn, I think I'm going to have you clicking buttons left, right, and center and doing the demo for me, if that's okay with you. Oh, yay, good, excellent. So I was going to go do a kind of a run through of what's on Scottish Borders research and data page and give kind of a demonstration of one of the tools that we use. Like Jan, we use a lot of publicly available information, and ScotFO, the Scottish Public Health Observatory, have a very good profile tool that goes down to small areas that are called intermediate zones, and they're about the size of our towns. So they're 2,500 to 6,000 people, and we have 30 of them in the Scottish Borders. But one of the things that was asked of me was, do we have an understanding of what is a good sample size? And with it, I've gone, we'll go on to the next page. Woohoo! And just recently I have found, if you click on the link, let's see if that will work. Will it work? Will it work? Will it work? Is it on another page? Okay. There we go. So I found this by happenstance, but it's probably one of the best things I've ever found for understanding your sample size for a survey. And it does say randomly selected people, so it does make the best option possible. But you'll see that if you see population and sample, and if you have a population of 50 people, you need to have 44 responses in order for that to be significant. But if you have a population of 2,000, you need 322 people responses. So it's a really strange thing that statistics does. I know it can be explained, but I'm not going to explain it. But if you have less than 1,000 people, you need proportionally more responses. But once you get about 1,000 people, as in terms of your population, you need a sample of about 300 and more. And it's really funny is that when you get to 1 million people, theoretically, you only need 384 people to respond to a survey to have something significant, which is a little scary, but it's true. And that's why a lot of the times it will say 19 times out of 20, this is what the confidence level is. So it was just kind of, there's a link if you're doing something within a town or a community, and you've got a community of 1,000 people, if you get 250 responses, it's not maybe not be significant, it will be informative. But if you get 500 responses, then actually that's probably going to be reasonably representative, assuming everything is equal. I hope that makes sense. But it was one of the few times that I've actually seen a nice little table of what the population is and what the sample size you need to have something of some significance. There we go. And I just kind of showed you the screenshot and kind of going what's the population, and you kind of see the proportion of responses. If you have a population of 50, you need 88% responses. Whereas if you have a town of 10,000, maybe size of Peebles, you need to have 370 responses, which is at about 4%. Does that make sense? Okay, and then we're going to Scottish Borders pages. On Scottish Borders pages, if you click on the first one, the research and data, the link should work. You could actually click on the picture. Will it go? Will it go? Will it go?
Sorry, Erin, it doesn't look like it's working for me.
Oh no.
It's coming up with an error message.
Oh, try the regular web pages one then. Yeah.
It's actually working if I click on the link as a guest viewer.
Is it?
Yeah, if I click
How
on it, it seems to
fantastic is
work.
that? Neat. Who would have thought? So the data pages within the council kind of hide like everything else on the council's website. And I'm told that it is work in progress, so we're going to go with that one. Are you able to get to it now, Lynn?
No, it's just coming up with an error. Can't reach this page for me when I'm clicking on any of the links.
Try the one on the left hand side then, the one with the words.
I've tried that one too. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working for me for some reason.
Oh.
Lynn, I'll take on and share that. Don't worry, I'll send that over just now.
Okay.
Oh, thank
So-
you. Sorry.
Let's hope the next page works. Anyway, within all of this, it's my colleague Heidi has put together these pages, and they're extensive list of what information is available at towns and villages what specific things have been asked for and been loaded up. And partway down the screen, if we look on the right-hand side, it's you'll see the little thing that says research and data, and then you say research and data people. And if you click on that, and research and data place. So if we click on the research and data people, we get another page that's specific. And within it, you can see the information about that has been put together on that. We're working on trying to make something a little bit more interactive than just words, but it is a slow and hard time to get to it. And with place, if you click on housing up at the top there, and it's showing where there are information about statistics related to housing and that sort of thing. If we go to, oh, there we go, right away. You see strategic assessment. We go into that one. Let's hope that works. Please, Luke, please work. No.
Is that still sharing or has that gone off?
You haven't switched to a page.
I have, bear with me, I'll stop sharing and go back in again.
There we go.
There we go.
We get nice little echo food. Anyway, within this, for the 2023 strategic assessment, there were Is it better now? Oh, let's hope so. Yay. Okay. There's a summary position on a PDF for each of the different themes that were in the community plan. So if you look at those, you can see enough money to live on. Let's click on that one and see if we can download the PDF just to kind of go, is that of use? I wonder if it will work, Naomi. I hope it will. So within it, this was done in April 2023, but we are looking at the different things across the way. It just gives an overview of what the cases are within the Scottish Borders. And if we go down to wages, if we click on wages, we get that from NOMIS. And if we go down a little bit, we can kind of see the work-based placed and the residence-based wages. That's median working wages in the Scottish Borders for a full-time person. And you can see that how does it compare to Scotland? For workplace based, that's the blue line, we had 85% of the Scottish weekly wage. For residence based, it was 89. So we have less, the average person or the average median wage is more than 11% lower than the Scottish average over time. And that's just kind of, that's the starting point for the Scottish Borders in terms of, hey, we've got some people that are earning some decent money, but actually compared to the rest of Scotland, and this is similar to Dumfries and Galloway as well, that the earnings of people within the areas is below the average for Scotland. And that just means that the starting level is more of a challenge. And so especially with the cost of living, that just hit us that little bit extra hard. If we go down a little bit more on that one, it was just that's the ins and outs of it. But there's lots to be found within that page. If we go back to Lynn's demonstration. Within that, within the dedicated page of the council's data page, there is an email to contact that if you want something specific, that can be pulled together for you. So if we go to the next page, and this is where ScotFo profiles are really interesting. And let's hope that it works. It is. Oh, goody. So ScotFo profiles, these are done by Public Health Scotland, and it goes down to intermediate zone. So if we click on summary profile, or profile summary, and we want health, if you look on the filters at the top left, health and well-being, we're going to choose instead of health board, let's choose a council. And our favorite council, the only council in the world, is the Scottish Borders, isn't it? And then with that, you can see they've got a code in terms of if there's an orange dot, then whatever the thing is, that it's doing worse than Scotland. If it's a blue dot, it's doing better than Scotland. If it's a gray dot, it's just doing this similar to Scotland. And if it's white, then it's for information and we can't be really using it. But within it, we've got the health and well-being profile. And if we look at, what's a good one? Alcohol admissions to hospital, that seems to be a favorite one. But it looks like the Scottish Borders is doing pretty good. Compared to the rest of Scotland. So that's a really good thing. But if we go back up and we're going to choose another area, let's choose an intermediate zone. Instead of council area, intermediate zone. And then we're going to choose Scottish Borders. And then let's choose Galashiels North. And there we have admissions to hospital. And look where the little dot is. So that kind of be interesting for what's happening with Galashiels North. Within that, this gives you, it can be downloaded as a PDF or a CSV if you want to work with it independently. But this gives you kind of a rounded picture of what's going on. But if we click on rank up at the top, and we're back to alcohol because it's Scottish Public Health Service. But so if we change from health board to choosing an intermediate zone, and we choose Scottish Borders as our council, they have the information there, and you can see that in the map each of the different areas, and it's also, you can see it in the area, or if you tick the overtime in the 3 section, you can see how things have changed, which is really quite an interesting thing in terms of where things have gotten better or worse over time. So Galashiels North at the top one may have actually still been the higher than the average for the Scottish Borders, but you'll see that it's blue in terms of it actually had a very good improvement. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. If we go to area again, changing it back up to area, and we go to the first drop down box, number 1, what indicator you're looking at. Let's go down a little ways and see if we can find something that's interesting. Maybe all the way down. You just keep to something you find interesting. Yeah. Emergency patient hospital admissions is a good one. And you'll notice that it's 19 to 20, so it's a 3-year average. But you can see there are 3 areas in the Scottish Borders that have significantly more emergency admissions, and quite a few that have less compared to Scotland. And if you click on the 95 confidence level, that's the little dot there, you can see where the I bars go. And you can see, you can compare it to Scotland, or you can compare it to the Scottish Borders. So we can change that to see Scottish Borders, and you'll see how things change within that. So if we're only comparing within the Scottish Borders, there's only 3 areas that are doing significantly better than the Scottish average, the Scottish Borders average. And we can try it over time and see how things have changed there as well. So, oh, that's just changing 1 year to 1 year. So go, yeah, first one. So it's going from 2002-4 to 1921. So we can see where the biggest changes have happened. But if you're say in Jedburgh or Eyemouth, that sort of thing, this is only information specifically for those areas. And Langley is an area of Galashiels, Burnfoot is an area of Hawick, but both Hawick and Galashiels have 4 intermediate zones. So there's distinctions between the areas in there. Peebles has 2, and so does Kelso. But if you're trying to get understanding of what's going on statistically and on the health side of things in terms of for the better community, that's a useful tool. And that's what I use quite a bit because it's gone through a lot of rigor.
That's really helpful, Erin. I mean, I guess what's quite nice about this is the level of interaction that there is in there. And I guess we've looked at different kinds of data that we have as a council, and you spoke about trying to make our information a bit more accessible in that sense as well. And that kind of aspiration to kind of do something similar to this, I guess, is kind of where
it is. It's
if
we're going to do something similar to this, do we really want to replicate that or not? So that's the other thing, is that this is a robust service already there, and we may not want to be not necessarily stepping on toes, but doing something where we may not be the area expertise. Yeah.
But I guess kind of taking inspiration from the way the
Exactly.
information is presented, and then adding
Yep.
supplementary information that we hold as a council, and
That's it.
potentially then pulling in from other
Yep.
sources as well.
Yeah, and we
Does
could
anybody-
very well say a couple of these things we do want to have in the Scottish Border profiles. Yeah.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Erin around any of the information that's been shared? I appreciate that is a huge plethora of data that you have been shown, and the availability of lots and lots of different things. Melanie.
Sorry, I know I shouldn't probably ask questions, but it's just picking on that point, Naomi, is that there is so much data. So is there an easy way to know where to go to get what you want? You know, we've got resources with SOSE, with other organisations, Scottish Government, SBC. So it's just a case of familiarising yourself with what's available where.
It's a tough one. That's one of the things that was done on the Scottish Borders pages. There's a lot of links to this is where you can get that. This is where you can get that. So there's
Right.
links on the Scottish Borders page to the to get the insights on what's the ins and outs of how your school is doing. So if you go to let's see if I can share and see if it will work.
Whilst Erin's just trying to navigate to
Yep.
that, it'd be interesting
Okay.
just to hear from any of the community members if you were kind of aware of that level of information, if that's helpful, or if you still kind of feel like there's a lot of navigating and trying to work your way through, and how we could potentially help to sort of navigate that as we think about data and the way it's presented going forward. And we obviously don't have control of all of it, but what we could do to make it more accessible. Simon.
Yeah, no, just to say, amazing resource, and I've got my iPad here, and I'm just touring around a bit as well. I think it's going to take a while to get our head around all the nooks and crannies because it's so rich. But if there was the dreaded question, but if there was a contact person that, like, if we wanted a little signposting towards something, or
on the bottom of all of
someone who
the
could send us a
information and
web
research
link on a
pages,
particular thing, that would be terrific.
you can email the research at scottborders.gov.uk and we can help you with things.
Excellent. And Erin, that comes to you, does it?
It comes to it doesn't come directly to me, it comes to my team, another member of my team, and she is more specialized, I guess, in terms of meeting needs of specific communities. So the different communities have gone to her for area profiles, that sort of thing. It all depends on what you're really looking for. And sometimes we can get these things, sometimes we can't. I thought this was in here. There's statistics on leaving and that. Oh. So if we click on school leave, this is going directly to statistics.gov.scot. This is statistics.gov.scot is the official home of open data for the Scottish Government. And getting in and out of this one takes a bit of time, but once you get it, you get it, but it's really not as friendly as the ScotFo profiles. So that's why I was showing you the ScotFo profiles. Oh, and there's, I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is at the moment, but there are different ways of getting ins and outs of data. Yeah.
Thanks for that. That's good to know that we can ring that number and talk to someone who knows.
Yeah, a really good idea if you're kind of going, hey, I'm looking at what can we pull together for our area this way, and do we have anything that shows how well our pupils are doing or something like that. If that's important, what do we have on that side of things? And we would be looking at the publicly available information on that, as opposed to not necessarily what's in our education systems at the moment that are not publicly available.
Right, thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what we're really saying is that a tour guide of all the various different statistics and data that is available is really kind of what we need to kind of sort of navigate the way around this sort of plethora of information. And Erin's team are a resource there to do that. And I guess as we get better at this, and Melanie comes up with a fantastic strategy about how we can actually present all of this information in a really accessible way, then we've got that, we've got that opportunity to make the most of this information that's here. It's worth just saying at the moment that we're still reliant on the 2011 census data because the 2022 hasn't been released as yet. So there is still more information to come forth, and that will be a richer database even than what we have at the moment. And that's only going to get added to as time goes on. Charles, I think you had your hand up next.
Thank you. I think the word data is not one that I would choose to use particularly. I value the old-fashioned, no doubt, word survey. But having said that, the information that we're being shown seems to me to give the possibility that the best is the enemy of the good, if I can put it like that. I wondered if there was a place planning checklist produced, maybe even by Scottish Government, that gave an indication of the areas in which we need that data. And we could work from that as a sort of rather more practical tool. And maybe even that somebody in the council who understands where the various data sources are could produce a sort of package of stuff that might be useful, relevant, and area-based, because in St Boswell's, for example, we've got a parish boundary defined, but I can't find out what the carbon footprint is for that parish, because the carbon footprints that have been produced so far are by ward. And we are sort of tail end or the top, if you like, of the Jedburgh and District Ward, and it doesn't really relate in a rather direct or useful way that we can sort of get behind particularly. So that's my question. I think it's all very well, all of us trying to chase around looking for helpful information, but it seems to me that restricting the levels and areas of information that are going to be practically useful, perhaps with some guidance from planning experts in Edinburgh, dare I suggest it, would shortcut a lot of the potential grief that we'd be presented with, and then we'd be able to integrate it in a rather more straightforward way, rather than going down, as I fear, lots of rabbit holes here. I'd be interested in what other people think of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously very happy for others to come in on their thoughts on it. We are going to hear from Phil shortly, who is from Scotland Towns Partnership, who's going to give us a bit of an overview of the sort of snapshots of information they can give us about a place, which does give you that kind of baseline of information. I guess what we wanted to get over to tonight was that whatever it is that becomes a priority for your town through this place planning process, there is information for you to delve into that helps to shape and form the thoughts and feelings around that, and kind of sort of that database decision making. So if it is that actually you feel like there is a well-being issue in your community that you want to support, then there is that information with Public Health Scotland that can help to give you some real information about what's actually happening there. If there are pockets of deprivation, then you can actually look at how that compares to the rest of your community, because we know that that exists within some of the borders communities, that there are areas that are affluent but have these pockets. So I guess it's just us trying to give you a little bit of an overview. I don't think anybody would ever expect you to include the entire spectrum of information for a place within a place plan, but where you are looking at specific issues, that's when this information becomes quite important. We've obviously spoken previously about the carbon data side of things. And it's something Erin and I have also spoken about offline, and it's not available yet, but it's something that obviously was discussed with the New Scottish Borders Climate Action Network, and they spoke about how that could maybe be a project that they took up the mantle on. And again, our team were very happy to support investigating what information is maybe missing and how we can potentially then start to look at that. And I appreciate that doesn't help immediately, but obviously the carbon side of things and the climate action is becoming more and more at the forefront in terms of people's thinking. So all of that information is only going to become more and more important. So I think that, you know, as I say, it's not available yet, but perhaps it is something that could be looked at, and we can absolutely take that offline and discuss that in more detail. Did anybody else have any other thoughts on Charles's perspective around data and kind of data overload potential with all of this stuff kind of spilling around in the mix? Nobody else just now? Okay. We'll get. Sorry, just putting everybody on mute for the feedback. It seems to be particularly bad this evening in terms of picking up.
Yeah, Naomi, do you see my hand raised?
I don't, Gordy, but feel free to come in.
It's very strange.
You've
Gordy,
just
you're on
muted
mute.
yourself.
This laptop's acting a bit strange tonight. Yeah, just understand the data is what we kind of harvest out of the survey. So the data is different from a survey. The survey is the act of acquiring the data, and the data is what we get out of it. But I think, you know, as we drill down about things like carbon and things like that, I think that will happen over time as communities engage in what happens in their own communities. I think it's my kind of look at the data and how important it is as we go through these place plans, is what we're doing in our communities, is when we first start the survey and ask people what their aspirations are, what we need to action in our communities, then that will kind of lead to what data we need to support that, or look at what we want to build around the plans. But if we spend all our time down a rabbit hole of getting all this great data that people have done these amazing platforms and data, but I think it'll be not really time efficient, because we'll be acquiring data that we don't necessarily need, or necessarily not important to our community in particular. So I think we just kind of have to look at what our community's needs and requirements are, and what our visions and aspirations are, and then try to support that through whatever method of data we can, to whether say, yeah, that's right or not, or we have to action this because of this. But I think that's just my kind of take on the whole thing. You know, that's it, Naomi. I'm away. I'm away. Bye.
No, thank you, Gordon. Sorry, I think I'm picking up the feedback on your mic. Apologies. I think it's exactly that. It's about trying to have enough information that it's kind of helping people to understand the context, and I guess even kind of reinforce the views of people, or dispel myths, I suppose, around what people think around areas. And that's the kind of thing about data, is it can be used in so many different ways to inform the conversation. So swiftly moving on to bring Phil in, just to talk a little bit about how Scotland's Towns Partnership have worked with information to help us all on our journey with place planning. Phil.
Thanks, Naomi. Can you hear me okay? Lovely. Just very briefly, I found Erin's presentation really interesting, and importantly, that information to me is very useful, because the next time I'm down in the Borders and I'm looking for a party, I'm heading straight to Gallowshiels North. The other point that was made about death by data, I just remember a couple of years back the headline news about Greenock being the worst data zone in the whole world. And basically all that had happened was a homeless hostel had been opened, and about 20 people had been relocated into that homeless hostel. Nothing else had changed. But because of the sort of depth of analysis of that data zone, it almost portrayed the end of the world in Greenock. And in reality, it was just a social intervention that that sort of went under the radar for a while. So you have to be careful in how you interpret it. So is there somebody operating my slides? Because I don't have the ability to do anything like that. Perfect, thank you. Just very briefly, by way of introduction, thanks for the invite tonight. I am Phil Prentice, the lead consultant for Scotland's Towns Partnership. That is the national body trying to support the regeneration, revitalisation of our towns. We do 4 things. We have the platform for towns. We also lead on the policy, working closely with both COSLA and Scottish Government. So we have the new future for Scotland's towns, which looks towards the bigger policy barriers around fiscal inequalities, looking at NDR, looking at digital tax, etc., incentives to try and improve the piece. It looks at planning, data, climate, and sort of tries to advise the government on what needs to be done to make a step change, town centre living, those sorts of things. The other 2 things we do is Scotland's improvement districts. We've got a very expansive network of different types of improvement districts, mainly driven by the BID model, the Business Improvement District model. But we have roughly 40 across Scotland just now, and probably about 20 in development. Galashiels would be included in that. We're hopeful that we'll get a Business Improvement District in Galashiels next year. And the final thing we do is the Scotland Loves Local campaign. Driven from COVID as a recovery measure, this was basically trying to underpin localism, sustainability, and get people reconnected with their local places. So in a nutshell, that's who we are. I'm just going to talk through 2 data tools. So if we could move on to the final slide, please. I like to keep things simple. In terms of the tools that we offer, basically, whenever the Towns Partnership was established in 2014, that was on the back of a review into Scotland's towns. We had seen the great financial recession. There hadn't been a quick recovery. Everybody was starting to panic. So basically, I was working at the Centre for Scottish Public Policy at the time, and we would invite the Scottish Government's cabinet out for Chatham House rules dinners, and we just realised that in reality, Scotland was a nation of towns. And an area like the Scottish Borders, the south of Scotland, definitely is it's an area of towns. You could potentially argue that you've got 4 capital cities: Edinburgh, Newcastle, Glasgow, Carlisle. But in reality, right across the south of Scotland, it is predominantly towns. And the vast majority of Scots live and work in towns. So we had to start looking at what we could do to reinvest in our towns and town centres, because they were starting to struggle. So the first thing we did was to engage. We went and spoke to the development sector, investors, pension funds, house builders, energy people, climate, digital, heritage, culture, local authorities, third sector groups. We basically got everybody into the room and said, what can we as a new organisation do to help you in your journey? And the first thing was what's called Understanding Scottish Places. So USP.Scot. We got a load of data people, the Centre for Local Economic Strategies, the Urban Big Data Centre, Glasgow University, Stirling University, the Improvement Service. We basically got all the data experts into a room to come up with this fairly unique model, which actually created a typology and looked at towns in the context of not just the sort of socio-economic normal measures that you would analyse a town, but also looking at how dependent it was on neighbouring settlements and how it fitted into the sort of jigsaw of the wider geography. Who was coming into your town? Where did they come from? Where did your people commute to? Just trying to look at even things like carbon footprint related to all of that. So USP.Scot, basically, we decided to work on the locality geography. It's not ideal. You'll never get the ideal solution in terms of geography, but locality data was the sort of level that we landed on, because that was the one that was probably the most useful to actually interrogate the data around towns. We looked then at building in a load of socioeconomic data. Behind each town, there's probably somewhere in the region of 80,000 different bits of data woven across 14 algorithms. It's a very straightforward tool to use. If you went into USP.Scot and typed in the name of one of your local towns, Galashiels, for example, it'll tell you that Galashiels is a very ancient town. It was established in medieval times, basically because it was on a road between abbeys. Became a market town, became an administration town, became a textile town, and now there's roughly, including the little hinterland parts of it, there's roughly about 14,000 people. So it's one of the more substantial towns in the Borders. But importantly, and this was something that local government, central government really insisted on, it wasn't about creating league tables. It was actually about creating typologies. So for the first time, if you typed in Galashiels, it would give you a map of Scotland. It would actually show you which towns outside of Galashiels that Galashiels actually was most identical to. And you'll find that that would include, I made a wee note, Dunfermline, Inverary, Peterhead, Falkirk. And that, for the first time, would actually get local politicians and economic development people thinking outside of their local authority geography. Because very often political decisions are just made on the basis of how come Hoyok's better than Jedburgh, better than Melrose, better than Galashiels. And you're comparing apples and oranges, when in reality, you should be looking at how come Gala isn't doing so well in perhaps social housing compared to Falkirk? What's the difference in terms of conditions? Can we go to Falkirk and speak to those people about what they're doing? So it was widening people's perceptions on the art of the possible. But to be honest, it's a very high level tool. It's really just something that sort of starts conversations and gets people interested. Stuff that Erin was showing you, and before that, Jan, is whenever you start to get into the really in-depth interrogation. So USP very much is a high level conversation starter. We built in change indicators. So we predominantly used 2011 census, but we took the midterm census review data in 2016. And we've also got data sets in the model that aren't related to census that we've bought in from like Greenspace Scotland, BT, Zoopla, you know, other data providers. We were a wee bit annoyed that the census was delayed. We will not get locality level cleansed probably until about spring, summer next year. And that's when we're going to do a substantial rebuild, not just in terms of the data sets that we're going to weave in. We started off in 2014, we had 479 towns in the model. That's every town in Scotland with a population of 1,000 people or more. We are going to continue with the 1,000 people threshold, but we reckon we'll probably be closer to about 490 towns because there's been some new town development and there's also been boundary changes. So there will be roughly 490 towns in the typology model across the country once we get the new build, probably by about autumn next year. And we are going to look at real-time data, looking at much more data from Scottish Government, from Ordnance Survey, from National Records of Scotland, and also commercial data sets. Now, this is a free tool. The Scottish Government invests in all of this via Scotland's Towns Partnership. So please feel free to use it. Since it was launched in 2014, we roughly have 4,000 users per month, and about half of those are actually new users. So incredibly, like 9 years after the product was actually launched, we're still seeing a lot of people stumbling onto it for the first time and then starting to use it in their conversations about how to make their towns better. One of the key things in terms of the model was looking at what assets a town had. You know, GPs, pharmacies, dental practices, schools, proximity to universities, how far people had to travel to work. So all of these algorithms were built to give people a really rounded perception of what their town was. We also built in funding, so we looked at the main external funding sources, grant funders, National Lottery, people like that, to show was it a funding hotspot or a cold spot. We use proxy measures for tourism, so we have hotel beds. We've also got green space as a sort of proxy measure for health and well-being, access to high quality green space. We do have a model to look at climate. We were very active in creating the first climate action town, which was Cumnock in East Ayrshire. Part of that process, we've done a very detailed carbon footprint of the town, working with the likes of Scottish Power Energy Network, Scottish Gas Network, Scottish Water, the Council, various other stakeholders to look at what are the key measures that actually can create a carbon footprint picture, a really accurate picture of how people use energy to heat their homes, how businesses use energy, the transportation piece. So if you want to sort of learn from some of that, East Ayrshire Council have got a very detailed model for creating carbon footprint, but it's time consuming and it's expensive. Hopefully over time we'll be able to make that a wee bit more simpler with access, better access to open source data, etc. So that is roughly what understanding Scottish places is. We then had to create the typology, which meant we looked at putting towns into small, medium and large categories, and then we looked at dependency So you could be a dependent town or you could be an independent town, and there were 7 points in that scale. The interdependency scale, as it's known, was designed by the Centre for Local Economic Strategies, and it was really to show how resilient a place was. So an independent town is probably a town that would be peripheral. So I would say Galashiels is probably somewhere in the range of independent to interdependent. So it's probably peripheral to the cities. It's had to build up a lot of resilience because it's had to sort of sort out its own issues. Whereas a dependent town, primarily they sit within the central belt. So it's a town that's maybe close to the city. The city's got all the assets, all the jobs, the universities, the hospital, and that town depends on the neighbouring city for all of those assets. So the dependency interdependency scale was a very key way of actually clustering the towns into a typology. So for those of you who've got mobile devices or access to Google, if you just type in usp.scot, type in the name of a town and you'll see what I'm talking about. You can hover over all of the metrics, everything from home ownership, car ownership, assets, number of social businesses, etc. But importantly, it shows you the towns that you're clustered with. And to me, that's a really, really interesting way to get groups of people in a town to start talking and to start interrogating why, you know, what are we doing differently from these guys? Oh, I didn't think we were going to be anywhere like that sort of time. So it's a brilliant conversation starter, and then it just gets people inspired to take the next level. The next level is what we would call your town audit. Again, this was developed in partnership with the enterprise agencies, the councils, Scottish Local Authority, Economic Development people, heads of planning, RTPI. Basically, the industry designed what they're seen as a perfect town centre health check for Scottish towns. It looks at 7 thematic areas and measures up to about 50 different KPIs. A full-blown town audit takes about 3 days to actually complete. It looks at every single property within the town. It links back to the UPRN reference number on the assessor's website, so we know exactly what type of businesses you've got, what sits above the businesses, whether it's more business, whether it's residential. It goes in and does business confidence surveys. It looks at your accessibility. It looks at your activity in the town. Is there a development pipeline? What sort of investment flows are there? So again, between the USP and your town audit, those are 2 very comprehensive tools to give you a really good understanding of how your town is performing. USP is the starting point. Your town audit's the more in-depth, deep dive. And the beauty about your town audit is actually a perfect baseline. It's a base case scenario. So if you are starting to think of putting an investment or a series of investments into your town, whether it's around health and well-being, dealing with Galashiels North's drinking problems, building more houses somewhere, basically do the baseline, do the your town audit, and then after the interventions, you know, wait a year or 2 and then do that again, and you'll see where you've improved on the indicators. So it's a very good way of actually measuring progress. It doesn't go down into the depth of what Erin has. We kept it at a sort of higher level, but we did engage with the industry. We included the measures that the professionals and the sector asked for, and that included the third sector, the development trusts, the charity sector. We did include what the folk asked for, and to be fair, we've probably done, I mean, I've said there's 484 towns in Scotland just now with a population of 1,000 or more. We've probably done 120 of these audits, and we've also designed a smaller version for smaller towns. So there's a your town audit light, which only looks at the 7 themes, but it only measures in total 50 of the KPIs rather than about 500, which you would get in a full-blown audit. So that's us. If you just look at usp.scot, all of the stuff about town audits included in that. It's a tool that's just free to air. You are happy to play with it. We will be doing a substantial upgrade next year and relaunching USP Mark IV in autumn 24 once the census data has been cleansed, and we're also looking at bringing in a whole range of other different measures from Scottish Government, Public Health Scotland, Ordnance Survey, National Records, and a range of commercial data sets as well. So it's a tool for everybody to deploy. It's simple to understand, to interrogate. We will improve the functionality and the look and feel of it. We will have some live data sets brought in as well. So watch out for the space. But in the meantime, places don't change that quickly over a short period of time. It's still a very relevant tool if you want to be looking at your town just now. Don't blame me if it tells you you're like Newton Mearns. At least you're not like Yellow Shields North. Questions on a postcard, please.
Thank you, Phil. There's been a few questions in the chat just around the website address. And Alison's also asked about a simple pack that could have place planning level to be able to see which areas they want to dive into. So certainly the team at SBC and SOSI will be able to help advise on the sort of things that you want to look at in more detail and understand. I thought, because Phil was talking so much about the brilliant sort of overview that it gives you, I've actually opened a page on Hoik just to give you a bit of an idea about what that looks like. So I'll just quickly show you that just now. This has got to be the most screens shared in any one meeting, I think, in terms of all the different websites we've been to reference. But yeah, just kind of giving you that on the screen there. And Phil, please feel free to come in and correct my overview. But this is just the sort of the page for Hoik. It tells you that it's most similar to Montrose and Stranraer. It tells you that it's an independent town with two interdependent town, and kind of gives you a bit of an overview of what that means and what that methodology is. And then it can go into the comparison of the towns, but then all in terms of all these different relationships that come in there as well. So all this information, again, is that kind of starting point for you to start to understand what your town looks like in the kind of relationship of others in Scotland, but then how you can then start to drill down into the bits that are important to you. And this can be exported as a PDF as well as having the online presence for you to dig into. So we can certainly share links to the pages when we send out the slides as well. And it's probably just worth noting as well, there is a legacy Your Town audit for iMouth. It's from 2016, but again, I'll put the link in the chat. So if anybody does want to have a wee look at it, you'll get a bit of an idea about the sort of information that's captured in that process as well. So I'll pop that in there for you. But that was really helpful. Is there any more questions for Phil on that kind of overview? None just now. Thank you very much.
Oh, Naomi.
Yes.
Glitch that I have. I don't know why it's not bringing my microphone. Phil, I have a question for you. What do you? I know it's probably going to be pre-retirement that maybe you can do this, but when are you going to do this for villages?
Nothing. To be fair,
I know.
We did partner with another organisation that was looking at very small settlements. They were English based and they were trying to pilot stuff up here. But in reality, when you get down to settlements, 500, 600, 700 people, you're looking at the Development Trust Network. It's sort of bringing local people with a bit of wherewithal together. Those areas that don't have that capacity, again, it's the sort of Inspiring Scotland type approach that you'd need to adopt. But we had to draw a line somewhere. I mean, we're a very thin, agile, flexible organisation because we didn't want to create an agency. There's plenty of those in Scotland. What we wanted to become was a sort of positive disruptor, just going about making connections and networking. And that's really where we had to draw the line at 1,000, which, to be fair, is 2,000 less than what a town planner would define a town. Town planning would define a town of 3,000 people or more. We went down to 1,000 because the uniqueness of Scotland's geography brings in rural Scotland and coastal Scotland and island Scotland, and 1,000 people in a settlement on the island of Bute is actually a sizable town. It works as a town for these guys. So that's the rationale. But sorry, if you're in a village, I'll not be coming your way soon. I'm heading for Gala North.
Sorry, Gordy, you're on mute again. I had to mute you so it didn't get the feedback.
Thanks. No, I just say thanks, Phil, for that. Yeah, I am in a village slightly under that figure, but I'll accept that because it's an amazing butt up work you guys have done. So thanks.
Maybe there's some Sorry, the feedback's terrible. Maybe there are some opportunities to get some learning from that, Gordy, and how we could look at that and with the villages and maybe help to to sort of shape some of the information that might be useful to you.
Yeah,
Jen,
no,
Jen,
sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Thanks, Naomi. It's just picking up a point Phil raised in terms of development trust and those organisations that might filter under that threshold, that actually it is really worth picking up a conversation if you are a development trust with your local officer, because they also have access to a package of community intelligence, which is analysed. I think it comes from a system called Community Insights. So they can be the licence sits with Development Trust Association Scotland. So that is a useful point of reference as well.
Thanks, Jan, that's really useful. And there are some future webinars planned with DTAS as well, which is a lovely segue. Thank you for that. Erin, did you want to come in?
It was just to say, depending on the size of your village, if it's 500 or more, then it may be a data zone and will have some information available. But if it's smaller than 500, for example, Swinton in Berwickshire, we don't have a lot of information. When the census comes through, we may have a little bit more information at a small area level. What community are you in?
Myself, oh, we'll be okay. We'll sit. I'm in Denham, which sits at about 770 or something. I think the census will bring us in just over 800. But I understand what's available at that
There
level.
There is a data zone.
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Does anybody have any further questions? No. Okay, well then without further ado, I will bring in David Hope-Jones, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what SSDA are doing with data to support tourism. David, the floor is yours.
Hi there, Naomi. Thanks ever so much, and thanks for the invitation to say a few words. I'm aware of the time, and I'm aware of Charles's comment about data overload, so I'm going to err on the side of shorter rather than longer. But yeah, I'm from the South Scotland Destination Alliance, the SSDA. We are, I suppose, what in old money was once the Tourism Board. We're a destination management and marketing organisation. That means we do basically two things. We promote the south of Scotland, so Scottish Borders and D&G as a destination. We work with the media, work with sort of PR, and work with the travel trade to get more people visiting and spending money in the south of Scotland. But we also support and collaborate and support the collaboration of businesses to build the quality of the visitor experience in the south of Scotland. And an integral part of it, I suppose, that second function is data. We need to be able to understand how many people are visiting the south of Scotland, where they're going, what they're spending money on. And one of the things I started at the beginning of this year, and one of the things I was quite surprised about was that data in the visitor economy, tourism data, basically wasn't always the easiest to get. And I hosted a meeting at the end of August, bringing together the various, I guess, sort of data leads across the tourism sector in Scotland to share their data. And I was really taken aback. There is actually quite a lot of data being collected, but I think at a systemic level, we're not always, and I'm speaking just in the tourism sector here, so good at sharing that data and supporting businesses and the public sector to be able to make decisions based on that data. So one of the things I'm very keen that we do, the SSDA, is to be able to share easy to find information that relates to tourism to support businesses and public sector decision making in this space. I will try and do a screen share, and I know there's been some issues with this evening. So just while I do, to explain, our B2C brand, so our brand that we use to speak to customers, persuade people to spend their next holiday in the south of Scotland, is Scotland Starts Here. So if you Google Scotland Starts Here, you'll find our website and social media channels that are specifically encouraging people to visit. But our B2B brand, our brand that is speaking to businesses in the south of Scotland, that's probably most relevant to you, is the SSDA, the South of Scotland Destination Alliance. before I do my screen share, I will do put in the chat box just a single URL. Rather than give a PowerPoint, I'm just going to do a screen share and show where you can find all the information. Just 1 second. At the moment, it's saying only meeting organizers and presenters can share. I don't know if I can be given access to do a screen share. Apologies.
Lynn, are you able to access that at all?
Yeah, I'll just look in settings and see if there's. Can't see it, but David, I can share my screen if that would help, if you talk me through where to.
Yeah, no worries at all. Let's give that a go. If you click that hyperlink that that URL that I just put in, let's see if this works. Fantastic, that's great. And if you're looking for this, if you just go to South Scotland Destination Alliance and you go to the supporting tourism drop down, and the bottom one there is data insights. So what I'll do, you know what, I'm going to keep this really brief because there's been a lot of data, and you know it's relatively late. But if you maybe click that first one, the domestic sentiment tracker, that is from Visit Scotland. This is a piece of research that's been done since 2020. I won't go through it, but if you scroll down a little bit there, you'll be able to see the full download that you can see there. And essentially that's going through information collected by Visit Scotland across Scotland about, you know, things like, yeah, you can see it there, fantastic. So you can see perceptions of the cost of living crisis, whether things are getting better or things are getting worse. I must admit, a lot of this data is pretty depressing reading. As far as some of the challenges that are there, it goes through the gap between, you know, how many holidays people think that they would take each year and how many they actually do, and the difference being linked to the cost of living crisis. It also goes through a lot of sort of demographics around sort of from retirees to pre-nesters, who's more resilient through cost of living and who is less, but it's national data. If you go back to the website and back one, and fantastic, and if you just go down to the next box, and it's 56-degree insight, just to give you a sense, if you click that read more, perfect. Really good data. It's done every quarter, so every few months. If you scroll down and click the picture of, there you go, yep, that picture there. Just give you a sense of this. It's lots of infographics, really useful data about visitors to different areas. You can see Dumfries and Galloway and the Scottish Borders are areas there. It's, as I said, done on a quarterly basis, and it can show what percentage of Scots surveyed have holidayed in that region, are anticipating holidaying in that region. It also talks about some of the challenges and blockers to visiting in the different regions. Again, just keeping moving. If you just go back to the website, what I want to do is just give you a really quick flavour of what data is out there, and it's all in one place. South Scotland segmentation data. If you click the read more, this is a piece of research that we did with Yonder. If you just scroll down there, essentially that's looking at holiday aspirations. You know, how aware are people of the Scottish Borders and D&G? How often they visit, and it goes through the segmentation of who's essentially the best people to target to visit the south of Scotland. And essentially it concludes that the metropolitan adventurers, so 14% of the UK population, are those most likely to visit the south of Scotland. So we've built a marketing campaign around that. And then if you just go back a couple, again, I'm not going to go through any of this data. There's been a lot of data in this meeting, really interesting. I think the useful thing for me to do is just to show you this URL and say, this is where you can find everything there. But if you scroll down, you can see the Scottish Visitor, maybe we won't go into them, Scottish Visitor Attraction Monitor. There's two Great Britain domestic overnight trips sets of data. All of these are regularly updated by us. So this is, I think each of these are October 23 data sets, with the exception of the Yonder data that's there. And in fact, if you just scroll right to the bottom, the final ones there is probably the most useful geographic scale data but the timescales aren't so good. So these are STEAM data. STEAM stands for Scottish Tourism Economic Activity Monitor. It's very good longitudinal data sets. Both the local authority, Scottish Borders, and D&G Council in our patch commission GTS, Global Tourism Solutions, to conduct this research. And this is a PDF version, if you just scroll down to give a sense of it, a PDF version of the data. But there's a live dashboard that we're working to make publicly available that you can search different areas within the Scottish Borders to be able to see more information about the different sort of accommodation that's available, who's visiting, etc. The research is concluded in March, April time, as I understand it from GTS, but it seems to take quite a long time for it to be sort of agreed and analysed, and then it goes to councillors for briefings. We've reached an agreement that we are going to make this publicly available in the future going forwards, which I think would be really, really useful, and I'm really keen to facilitate. So the latest data, which this isn't, we're going to be hopefully putting live imminently in the coming weeks, and I'm really hope going forwards that by kind of the end of March each year, if not beginning of April, we're putting that dashboard live, so you're able to see tourism data disaggregated to a local level at more, I think, usable timescales. So that's, I suppose, a whistle-stop tour of the different tourism data that's currently available. And again, my priority is just getting all of that together on one web page. So hopefully, if anything that you want to do is tourism related, do use that link. But also know that we're there, and we're there to help. If you're developing a place plan that has the visitor economy, tourism at its heart, please know that we're there to help, and you can drop an email to the South Scotland Destination Alliance anytime, and we're really keen to assist with any tourism bit of anything that you're developing. And hopefully that's a helpfully concise summary of some tourism data that's out there. Naomi, back to you.
Thank you, David. That's really, really helpful. And I think that everybody will be quite excited when there is a live dashboard that they can use to understand at a more micro level on what information's out there. I suppose just for kind of information, there was a piece of work commissioned with Edinburgh University around data-based, data-driven innovation is what the title of the report is. And one of the key economic development opportunities for rural areas, particularly identified for Scottish Borders. So in terms of using intelligence, that is one of the biggest opportunities that we have as a region. And I think without exception, every community that we have spoken to around the development of their plans and the things that they're thinking about has an element of tourism in there and can see the opportunities that tourism does bring. So as David said, SSDA has an amazing resource, a range of specialists in their field to help with support with that. There is also SCOTO, which is the community tourism. Forgive me, David, I can't remember what the abbreviation stands for, but the Scottish Community Tourism. Anyway, we'll put a link to you all as well, so you've got that as, to help support. But really, like, again, it's not about overloading with information, but just helping to connect with the things that are actually pertinent to the things that you're prioritizing within your plans, and how that can actually help to sort of steer some of the thinking. Did anybody have any questions for David around all of that and what SSD can offer? No questions just now? Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of our whistle-stop tour of data in the Borders. I think we're all away to go and dream of data after all of that. But we'll share all the information that's been discussed this evening with the links to all the various sites that we've talked about and the slide deck that's been shared as well. And if anyone does have any follow-up questions they'd like to ask, please do get in touch. But other than that, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you to all our guest speakers for coming along this evening.
Okay, thanks, Naomi.
Good evening. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. See you later.